This is a treat, and I picked my T-shirt on purpose. For those of us that get to keep an eye on everyone and voices of the game and things like that, when we have the opportunity, when we knock on somebody's door and can bring them in to talk about stuff, you have to do it. And so we go to DC, catch up with Dave Johnson. One of the, Dave, first off, how long do I have you, first and foremost?
As long as you want, because I apologize. I'm running late this morning. I'm in Detroit. The confluence of my seasons have started, the Wizards basketball. So I sincerely apologize. And believe me, if I could turn my screensaver on my phone, I could show you my Diplomats logo on my phone. So that means so much to me, because the reason we're having this discussion is that there was a North American Soccer League. Sometimes the North American Soccer League is viewed as, oh, that was that Pele League. And yes, Pele was in that league, but it was not just Pele. It really gave us soccer in this country. And my first partner on broadcast in DC United, a guy named Gordon Bradley, who helped found the New York Cosmos, the famed Cosmos, was a guy who stayed in this country in 1969 when they were down to 5 teams. People were going back to wherever they came from, because soccer had initially failed as a pro league here. But all these people that stayed, they started soccer camps. They literally were the evangelists, if you will, that took soccer to the neighborhoods. And it's the whole reason we have soccer moms. And it's the whole. I think about John Harkes and all those people that grew up with the Cosmos. Paul Caligiuri, who scored the goal that qualified us for the 1990 World Cup, grew up going to California Surf games. And that still pains me that the California Surf, one of the great sports names ever, is not used. But the Diplomats had Johan Cruyff, which, that's really what, that was the end. Once I was a Diplomats fan before, but then I was a soccer fan, and it never stopped.
All right. So full disclosure. Yes, I did wear this on purpose, knowing that you were going to be on the show this morning. First ever game I saw was in the North American Soccer League, California Surf, Washington Diplomats at the old Anaheim Stadium. Yep. And so for me, it was Bill Irwin in net for the Dips and Bob Rigby in net for the Surf. That's how far back it goes for me.
Yeah. Wow. Well, yeah, I'm right there with you. And I was probably watching. It was funny. There were not many games that were televised back then locally. But for some reason, I think now that I look back, as I understand broadcasting, we had a lot of West Coast games. I say a lot televised. And I think it was probably because they came on at 11:30 at night, so they could get the airtime.
Yes.
So I still remember watching, believe it or not, maybe it was that game you were talking about, a Diplomats game. It was in obviously the summer. I remember at the beach with my friend, and I was so excited. We'll stay up late on Channel 5 in Washington, D.C., the independent station, and we'll watch the Diplomats in California Surf. And I still remember my friend saying to me, "Hey, there's nobody there." He was talking about Anaheim Stadium, but because there was that one side that I think there was the outfield or something that was totally empty. I mean, the Surf didn't draw big crowds, but it was a huge stadium.
They went up the third baseline.
Right.
And that was how it was. So it's kind of like, for those that know today Major League Soccer, think Yankee Stadium, but obviously larger. Goal was first base dugout. They go up the third baseline and work their way out to left field in Anaheim. And so they were toward that short porch in left field as they were working their way that way as you were looking at it on television. That was the layout that I remember at the Big A.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, Paul Caligiuri was at some of those games, and he got us to the World Cup in 1990.
Yeah, see, you're having you on is both doubly informational and dangerous, because I know that you and I can go down a bunch of different rabbit holes. I want to keep you for about another 15 minutes. Take you to the top of the hour. Is that okay?
Perfect. Again, I apologize for being late.
No, it's all good. No, that's why I gave you the 2 time slots, because of the meat and the sandwich with Chris Nugent in Chattanooga. Okay. You went into it a little bit about the history of soccer there in DC. What have the fans been like the last handful of years with the frustrations on the field with DC United? What has the fan vibe been like? It seems like they still there. There's the core that supports, but what has the overall fan vibe been like the last couple of years where DC hasn't made it to the postseason?
Well, it's difficult because there's no way to sugarcoat it, and that's why and I think the ownership obviously realizes that. That's why they made changes, did not waste time as things were not going well this season, with Troy Lesane and Ali Mackay. I mean, that's dramatic when you not only fire your coach, but also fire, your sporting director or general manager. And, I think there was belief that maybe they were onto something last year because they almost made the playoffs. They lost on goal difference, a playoff spot. And again, part of the frustration for the fans is as we know, it's not, a Herculean accomplishment to just make the playoffs in Major League Soccer. There's plenty of gateways to entry. So they go into this year. They actually start 4 games unbeaten, and you're thinking, well, maybe. Well, then it quickly turns south, and ironically, I think it in some ways turns south that it lost to the San Jose Earthquakes, who of course was coached by Bruce Arena, one-time DC United coach. But an example of just how not only ownership realizes it was not going in the right direction. We had a 7-1 loss to Chicago. There were some bad losses that the whole point of this season was, okay, if we shore up the defense, we'll make the playoffs. Well, it was going the other way. So that's why they made the change. Dr. Sogan has come in as the general manager, if you will, and Renee Weiler, an accomplished coach, has come in, and that's a significant. From what the ownership has told me, it's the most they've ever invested in a coach. So this is to me a clear indication. They're saying, "Oh, listen, since we last made postseason in 2019, we had the Wayne Rooney experiment as a coach. You had Hernan Losada. It just didn't work out. Troy Lesane. You can't keep saying, all right, every 18 months. This is somehow works in the Argentinian league where they change coaches every 18 months or 6 months, but it doesn't work. It's not the way Major League Soccer is structured. So this is a commitment saying that okay, this is who is going to be in charge, and we're going to go with their plan and their program. And I sat down last week one-on-one with Renee Weiler and had a coffee, and he knows there's a lot of work to do. And he doesn't sugarcoat things, again, to use that phrase, because it's now reached the point where the fans are saying, what you got to show us something that indicates we are now making steps in some kind of sustained success, because this is a great soccer city. Well, now every city is a great. Atlanta is a great soccer city, and I'm so proud of it. Atlanta was, again. Now we're going to go down a rabbit hole, but the Atlanta, was part of 1967 and the commitment of the original Atlanta Chiefs. But when Ted Turner owned the Atlanta Chiefs in the late 70s, they get 5,000 people at Fulton County Stadium. Now, Atlanta is just. I was so heartened to see, and am so heartened to see the support of the Atlanta fans, and I know they're going through a difficult period. But again, to stay on track, to get to the question, it is time. DC United, that the equity of opening a new stadium has expired. I mean, listen, there's no question. DC United, quite frankly, had it not been for this ownership group, I might not be having this conversation with you. There was no RFK Stadium, needless to say, was literally falling down. There was no alternative. There were other cities that were sniffing around. There were other investors, as we know, especially in that period of time. We're talking, between 2010 and 2015. The stadium situation had to be addressed, and it not only was it addressed, it was addressed. While there certainly can be improvements to the stadium, the location is an amazing location. It's where the Potomac and Anacostia rivers come together. It's part of the hottest neighborhood in the city, near the baseball stadium. So that was addressed. 2018, Wayne Rooney comes in, and I kid you not, November 2018, when we go from last place to first, or not first place, but to the playoffs, and then that playoff game with Greg Berhalter's Columbus Crew. You could not get a seat. I don't want to say that DC United was the hottest team in town, but they were hot. Everyone was talking about DC United. And then, unfortunately, Wayne Rooney left after 2019, and it's not been the same since.
And that's I think the sword that we're dealing with today, because traditionally front offices and ownership groups, they're patient when it comes to letting things develop and understanding, okay, we've got to fix things, but we know it's a progression. But these days, because of instant return on investment, the lack of patience when it comes to balance sheets and fans and making sure that folks are there, you go with the quick triggers, and then you might go down that slippery slope of every 18 months you're making a change, you're making a change, you're making a change. And so is this, you think, the realization for the DC United front office and the ownership group, hey, we've got to go back to that way of being patient and understand that there's a progression here that we've got to take if we're going to get back to where we were?
Yes, yes, and it has to be. The ownership group is. I mean, they're hearing the supporters, uh, and it's a situation where. Um, DC United, the ownership knows, okay, we can't have, we worked so hard to get the stadium I just mentioned,
Yeah.
and then you can't have no playoff games in it. That was not the point. And DC United, we've talked, has a decorated history, but the more we go into the future, the more we have a whole generation that doesn't even know about this that history. They're younger, and they, the last MLS Cup for DC United was 2004, and now it's a harder it's a harder league to win an MLS Cup. I'm not saying anything brilliant here. There's 30 teams, so your law of averages just is certainly magnified since then. So um, this was also, to me, and it's clear when they brought in Rene Weiler, and you could look at his resume and the success, and he's an international coach. Um, this was actually in the works longer than just a bad run of form um, in the early summer, because as you know, you don't just call up a coach who's in Switzerland and say, "What are you doing next week? Where you want to?" So that's not how he operates, and so I clearly, to me, and I'm just reading between the lines, that there had to be some concern, maybe even before the season started, that things were not going well. I don't know. It's again, look at who they signed as a coach, and it typically, as you know, and often we hear is the case when things start going bad in a season. And again, this season for DC United started with 4-game unbeaten streak, so you're not an indication there you're about to make a coaching change. Typically, okay, it's really going bad. What happens? The head coach gets fired, and there's an interim assistant coach named for the rest of the season. Often that didn't happen.
You look at things offensively, and I guess this is where we go into the TV open. Offensively for DC United, half of the goals have been scored by Christian Benteke, and everybody knows what he brings to the table and how much of a problem he is basically one of those power forwards. Gabe Pirani is second with 6, and that's 15 of your 29. Who else, say on decision day, for DC United to be successful, outside of those folks that are in the players to watch and the spot shadow, who else needs to be successful for DC United to get a positive result to end 2025 on the best note possible, you think?
Well, Jackson Hopkins is a homegrown player and he's somebody that Rene Weiler has identified as this is a young player that has a bright future, and he's been sidelined by injuries, and it's interesting. Jackson Hopkins was even a player identified by Wayne Rooney as well. This is a young player that he believes has a bright future. He's dealt with a couple injury situations this year at the start of the season, so that was what derailed his even debut. But when he came back, Bruce Murray, who is my color commentator, one-time all-time leading scorer of the U.S. national team, one-time member of the Atlanta Ruckus of Atlanta fame, and I called games in a stadium in Atlanta that boy, with the stone steps and the stone press box.
Adams Stadium in Northeast Atlanta, brother.
Right. And in July day, when we're wearing coat and tie, it's 100 degrees. I felt like I was at California Pizza Kitchen oven. That is, and I can still remember. Now I'm going off track again, but we would shoot the open the stand up for television on the field, and we'd have to run up those steps.
Yep.
And in 100-degree weather, and by the time I got up to the broadcast booth, I couldn't breathe. But anyway, Jackson Hopkins. Let me get back on Jackson Hopkins.
Sure.
You're the viewers to this are going to have this Johnson guy sobriety tested.
You and me both. It's a Friday, man.
No, but he is just he's making things happen, and he's also scoring some goals as well. That's not he's coming out of the midfield, but he is the guy right now that I think DC United looks to. I look to is that there's a game changer that might not be on fans' radar, but I think he's a player. There's going to be a lot of change at DC United, and that's, again, I'm not breaking headline news. When you're in last place, typically you don't run back the same team the next season. So, but he's going to be a young player that's part of the future. But again, that's a young player. This team, obviously needs the leadership of somebody like a Christian Benteke or as I was talking to Renee Weiler, it's important that you get players of certain quality in certain positions, or in positions, all positions for that matter, because then it rises the level of players around them rises. And so that's also what's going to be part of DC United going forward. But on Saturday is the immediate going forward, and Jackson Hopkins is the guy to look for.
Then 2 red cards against Charlotte, which means no Barraza in net, no Herrera in the attack. How do you anticipate the lineup is altered going into this matchup with Atlanta United?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, because he's looking at, he wants to see players. He started Jordan Farr in goal. It was not. I don't think he did Jordan Farr any favors starting him against Philadelphia. But what I'm saying is he's looked at certain players. I would think Kim Jun Hung would be in goal. So for DC United, and I think there won't be a lot of adjustments from the way they played. I mean, you're gonna have Benteke, you're gonna have Pirani, running the show. And again, Pirani's a guy that I think we've just scratched the surface with, or at least you hope you've just scratched the surface with. He's a talented Brazilian. I remember when he came in this league, Bruce Marine, I thought, wow, how do we end up getting him? And then, not to be critical, but the longer he plays, you realize, okay, he's still got some why he's here and not, starring in someplace else is, he's got some finishing skills to work on, which he's doing. As you mentioned, his goal scoring's come up. He comes in and makes a difference in the game. So, it's a DC United team that 4 games unbeaten at one point under Renee Weiler, but he was also direct after the 6-0 loss to Philadelphia. He said that's often looking at the gap between number 1 and number 15, and that was a cruel wake up call. But even against down to 9 men, which was crazy in the first half, they almost could have gotten a 1-1 draw of Charlotte. So they've been more competitive against Renee Weiler as head coach. So I think they're going to continue to be more compact defensively. They're going to be hard to break down. And then, anytime you have a Christian Benteke, I know he's not had the Golden Boot year he had last year, but, that gives you a chance.
Cut the promo for me, if you would, for folks that want to listen to you and the DC United side of things and how they can listen to you all season long, sir.
Well, on DC United Soccer, we are your home iHeartRadio. It's the iHeartRadio app. One of the few things that's free in this country. You download it, you listen. Dave Johnson, Bruce Murray, U.S. Soccer Hall of Famer. We have a lot of fun. We interact with all of our listeners. We get your names and addresses because we want to send you Christmas gifts. At Dave J Sports, if you want to connect on social media. And we just have a fun time. And again, I'm looking forward to. I want to see a good crowd continue in Atlanta. I've made some great friends with from some Atlanta United supporters that are part of the Fulham in the South group, which they support Fulham. But I just again, as somebody like you who wears a Diplomat shirt, and I've got to go out and buy that shirt now, is when I see passion and heart for our game there, where we once didn't have in this country. I just love it. And even when fans are unhappy like ours are right now, apathy is the worst thing, and we don't have that.
You now have the keys to the kingdom. You have the garage door opener. You know where we hide everything under the mat. So anytime you want to come in, vent your spleen, talk about things, whatever, talk about the Wizards, talk about whatever, you can come in and crash at any time. It was great to see you. Thanks for coming in. Travel safely and enjoy the NBA today. And then you've got soccer on the weekend. As always, Dave, good to see you, my friend. Don't be a stranger.
I appreciate it so much. Thank you so much.
There goes Dave Johnson. An Adams Stadium reference from Dave Johnson. You see, now that was something I never thought I would get. As a child of DeKalb County schools, I know Adams Stadium backwards, forwards, and upside down. And he mentions Bruce Murray and he mentions the Ruckus. We know all about that. I have a Ruckus t-shirt buried someplace, and I think you can get a Ruckus t-shirt on our website in our shop section because Jason has kind of retrified it and done everything. So we may need to see Dave. We may need to send Dave a Ruckus t-shirt. We may need to do that. But that was Dave Johnson. I know that if I'd used the word legend, he probably was going to sit there and go, nope, I'm not a legend.